What's up, fungal associates? Welcome to Completely Arbortrary. It's the podcast about trees and other related topics. I am one of your hosts. My name is Alex Crowson. Alex Crowson, that's me.
You just introduce yourself and then realize you just said your own name as if you're talking to yourself?
Yeah, Casey Clapp is over there. Casey Clapp, that's
Hi,
him.
That's me.
Casey, I've got a little bit of an introduction to talk.
Ooh, all right, yeah.
Sometimes we bring an introductory conversation. This can be a short one.
Okay.
But this morning I was like, you know what? I've got plenty of hobbies. So few of those hobbies involve community.
Interesting. It's all like singular things, like you're doing it with yourself and nobody else?
Sure. I mean, like music and, board games. I love board games.
Yeah,
those are all
Yeah.
can be community, but they can also be personal.
Yeah.
And I decided I wanted a new hobby.
Okay.
And I want it to be something that I have to do in a group.
Wow. Okay. All right. So it's a forced... okay. Keep going.
I've got a list.
Okay.
Of things I've always been interested in, but require being in a group, which I've usually been averse to.
Is that the title of the list?
Yes. So we have blacksmithing.
Okay. All right.
I've always wanted to try blacksmithing.
I had no idea. Honestly,
It's true.
As you say it, I'm like, that's not a thing anymore. But I know in my heart, it is.
Of course it is. Maybe not, maybe you can't, you're not arming the king's men, but you're certainly, I don't know, you have a YouTube channel or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's at least a YouTube channel for it.
Ceramics. That's definitely a thing. And there's a ceramic studio right across the street from me. Have you ever seen it?
I have not. No, I haven't paid attention.
It's very cool. American Sign Language. Getting a big group of people and learn American Sign Language. Always wanted to.
I have seen groups of that. Well, certainly in college because people take it as their second language.
Sewing. I've always wanted to learn how to repair clothes.
Yeah.
Or just and I've tried recently, and it was one of the most frustrating experiences I've ever had.
It's a craft by every means.
Yes. And so if a professional could say, no, Alex, turn this around, put this in, there you go, use this kind of needle.
Yeah.
I think that would be really fun. And
I can attest it is. Yeah, okay.
Lead to some merriment and new friends.
Yeah, that would be great. I think you should do this, Alex. I'm not going to laugh. I think that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
Merriment and friends.
Yes.
Especially because those are all kind of crafts that also are like hand-focused crafts. Like
exactly.
Using your body to do this thing rather than just being like, or I get together and I talk about something. And
if I get overstimulated with the amount of people or the amount of conversation, I can just go, I need to focus on this for a second.
Exactly. And it was like, oh, sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's my list of, and I'll follow up with you if I make any progress on those, and we'll see.
So you should sign up for a course because they have them all over the place.
Yeah.
I think that would be a fabulous idea.
I think I'm going to try to get convince you to let me expense it to the company.
Oh, really? Just because we've had this conversation?
Yes, exactly. It's for work.
I'd like everyone to note that makes me the financial officer, chief financial officer of Arbortrary Media.
Better you than me, Casey. Case, we're here to talk about a tree today.
We sure are, Alex. We sure are.
And that tree, this is one of those, and I feel like there's been a lot of these recently where I've thought, I cannot believe we haven't covered that.
Alex, I had to check 3 times to make sure that we hadn't covered it already.
I think you're right. But today we are talking about the Sitka Spruce.
That is
Shocker.
Right. I know everyone else is Googling it like, wait a second, they've already talked about this?
There might be some arbitrary historian out there who's like, you guys, you have talked, but we've searched the lists.
They will find that we have talked about the tree, but we haven't talked about the tree
in an episode format.
Precisely.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see what we have to say about it.
It's gonna be quite fun. I think there's no end to this tree. Like we could talk about 10,000 different things, and it would all be a nice long episode.
All right. Well, let's see what we have here. Casey, we got to do so after a break. We will be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. Today we are talking the Sitka Spruce.
I just love editing magic, Alex. I just want you and everyone out there to know that.
Casey, scientific name of Sitka Spruce, Picea sitchensis?
Wow, sitchensis. You got it. Well done.
Wow.
That was incredible, Alex.
I pulled that out of nowhere.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you. You didn't even look at your screen. I can attest.
Well, I feel bad. I looked it up before you came
Oh,
over.
well, that's honestly, I'll take that. That's just how every good thing happens. You do a bunch of quick research, and you go get in front of people, and you say the research you just read. Forget it 10 minutes after that, and then everyone's like, that guy's an expert.
Well, speaking of,
whoa.
perfect transition.
That's not what I do, Alex.
Let's imagine that you and I are. How about we're walking this little hike I went on in Astoria, Oregon.
Okay.
Where I visited a very storied Sitka Spruce. Mm-hmm. It was very big and very tall. You probably know what it's called.
I actually don't know this particular one.
Okay, but it has like a. I'm tall, man. I'm 6'2" tall, and I could walk underneath this tree in the little like alcove it created in its trunk.
Oh,
like
really?
a hollowed out.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I know.
I got scared.
I know about the street. Then I got scared.
Yeah, but let's imagine we're walking by that, and let's ID this tree.
All right. Well, the first thing that you have already kind of hinted at is that it's huge.
Big tree.
They get big. This is what turns out to be, and I had to like give this a couple thought minutes, so to speak. It is the biggest tree, the tallest tree in the whole pine family.
Whoa.
And I thought that was the Douglas fir.
Wow.
And then I thought really long and hard, and that is the biggest tree. So
by volume?
By volume,
okay.
exactly.
This is the tallest.
Precisely. And then pines in particular, I believe the biggest is the ponderosa pine, but the widest or tallest, I think it's the tallest, is the sugar pine.
Okay.
So anyway, just to throw out all these little fun facts, I thought I'd just make sure to know.
This is the tallest spruce.
And the tallest
in the pine family.
The whole family.
Damn.
Yeah. Now, you have a guess for the height?
Ooh, okay. God, I wish I had a frame of reference here. We've only been talking about trees for 5 years.
That's it. You know, it's just, you got no idea.
I'm just going to throw a number out there.
Okay.
350 feet.
Ooh, you're very close.
All right.
It's actually closer to 334 feet.
See, that's pretty tall.
Exactly. 100.1 meters.
Damn.
Huge.
Wow.
Like gigantic.
That's a football field.
That's a football field. Yeah, exactly. Lay that on its side. That tree grows from end zone to end zone.
That is incredible when you put it like that.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Damn. Okay.
So they grow along the coast, Alex. And this is kind of the fun thing about this tree is that it does not really grow any further inland, certainly down in like the Oregon area or anywhere further south, more than about 30 miles inland. As it goes further north through Washington and BC, it starts to spread out and get a little bit further inland. But when you look at the graph of it, it's just right along the coast, no matter how you look at it.
Wow, all the way up into Alaska.
Yeah, it goes all the way out into the Aleutian Islands, almost over to Russia.
Cool.
Very close. So the other thing that I think is fabulous about this tree is that it is apparently one of the most common in certainly along the coast there. It almost dominates everything around it in that section of its world, but also in the UK and Northwest Europe.
Really?
It is a gigantic forest tree.
How about that?
Yeah, so they use it in forests all over the place, and to some degree, I read that it's essentially become naturalized, which is, code for invasive.
I see. Okay.
It's a little bit sad, but turns out this tree is so commonly used. I had no idea. I honestly thought Douglas fir was more commonly planted in the northwest of Europe. It turns out not. Now, it makes sense because the wood itself is storied. You know the spruce goose?
Yes.
Yeah, what is it?
It's a big old airplane.
It's a big old airplane.
Made of wood.
It's all made of wood, precisely, or mostly made of wood, I should say.
Who is the character linked to that?
Oh, it was the, geez, I can't remember off the top of my head.
Howard Hughes.
Howard Hughes. Thank you, Alex. Well, anyway, it is used in airplanes and historically was used in airplanes during World War I and II because its wood is the strongest for its weight of almost any tree in the entire world.
It's a good application.
It's a great application. So it's very light. You can fly with it, but it also is very strong, so it can move and bend and sway and take all the different pressures that you get in an airplane while it's up there flying around, especially during wartime, which is crazy. Could you imagine today flying a wooden airplane to go bomb or shoot at somebody?
Be a nightmare.
It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. I mean, imagine putting an engine inside of a wooden box that you're going to fly through the world.
That's insane.
It's crazy. Yeah. When we think about what humans used to do, it really does like blow the mind.
Jean-Luc Picard had a great line similar to that. Jean-Luc Picard from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
The captain of that ship. The earliest pilots would fly an aeroplane with a single propeller. Can you imagine? Now the ships are flying us.
Now the ships are flying us.
I love that line.
That is beautiful. So let's see. What else? All right. So the big thing that should also be noted, aside from the height of this tree, which, like I said, gets just over 330 feet, 100 meters, it also gets a gigantic diameter to match, up to 16 feet in diameter, which is 5 meters.
Holy shit.
It's huge.
That's the size of this room.
Easily the size of this room, yeah.
Wow.
And I have seen trees this size in the Olympic National Park, in the couple parks, Western Oregon. However, the tallest ones, they grow down with the redwoods. So often, if you're walking through the redwoods, you're not looking at a complete forest of only redwoods.
Sure.
Every now and then, there's a gigantic Sitka spruce, and there's a gigantic Douglas fir. Every now and then, a gigantic hemlock too, but mostly the latter.
Well, let's talk about some ID characteristics.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Alex.
Thanks.
So one of the things that I love to identify spruces in general, and this one in particular, is its bark and its base.
Okay.
The base of the trunk is always really buttressed. So it's got this very symmetrical buttressing that you just don't see in most other trees. Often they kind of go straight down and then bend out just a little bit at the base, but Sitka spruce and most other spruces very consistently have this big, nice, perfectly symmetrical buttressed base.
Cool.
They also have scaly bark. It's like a nice gray, kind of dark gray, light gray, mottled looking thing. But they're all in these very circular, scaly patches.
Right.
And they will pop off really easily if you just like pull your finger on them and go like, boop, 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 boop. You can just pop a bunch off.
Interesting.
So they're not shaggy. They're not flaky, really. If you pull them off, then they'll kind of pop off. But for the most part, they just look like these scales. It just looks like a scaly trunk.
Alligator skin.
Yeah, very much so, yeah. And it's not very thick, so it is a tree that is not really ready for fire, which makes sense. It grows along the coast where there's constant water, constant rain, constant fog all the time. So it is very attuned to that environment. So their branches are notable because they get really long. And a lot of people would confuse this with the Colorado blue spruce, but that stays very, very tight and narrow. It's a very tall forest tree that has snow that hits it a lot. The Sitka spruce is like, nah, baby, I don't need any of that. And it just sends out these gigantic long branches that usually swoop down a tiny bit and then come back up at the tips.
Really?
Yeah, just ever so slightly.
Good for them.
Yeah, it is really pleasant, and they are huge. Like, I mean, the canopy size of these trees easily can get 30 feet across without any question.
Shit.
It's very different for conifers. Usually conifers kind of stay tight. Maybe as they get older, they start to get a wider crown that rounds off. Sitka spruces will do that straight from the beginning. They'll just be like, nah, this branch is going. But they do it in a way that is unique because they grow very fast. In fact, one of them that I was reading about, they measured the length of the growth ring of a gigantic tree. And the growth ring was as thick as some of the older ones, even though this tree was like 15 feet in diameter. So, which means if you're putting on a amount of wood every single year on a tree that's 15 feet in diameter, well over 300 feet tall, when you calculate out what that actually ends up becoming, it turns out that this tree is one of the fastest growing trees in the entire world.
Wow.
Based on the physical amount of wood that it builds every single year.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's really one of those things where if you think about it, you're like, that's impossible. That's crazy. Like one single layer on a gigantic tree that has volumes of like 15,300 meters squared. Like these things are huge.
Wow.
So can you imagine whenever anyone says, well, the tree's not growing very fast, and it puts on just like a tiny little shoot that's like, an inch tall at the very tip of the tree and some small little growths at the end of every twig. That's how a lot of people have measured growth of trees.
Interesting.
But in reality, they're not considering the fact that it's also putting on a layer of wood along the entire thing.
Yeah.
So it really becomes like, oh my God, that's like obscene in terms of the amount. So the leaves of this tree look a little bit different than other spruces in that they have very sharp, pointy spruce needles, but they are two-toned, Alex, which is a really good ID characteristic. Yeah.
Okay.
On the top, they are kind of like a nice, kind of silvery gray, very light blue, almost greenish.
Okay.
When you flip them over upside down, they're like a bright pewter blue / green. So they have the model lines that are very bright on one side and not as bright on the other, even though technically they're covered on all sides.
They're good looking.
They really are. And the trees have this whole bluish kind of tone to them. If you see one from afar, stands out very easily, especially next to a Douglas fir or a western hemlock, where they are very bright green, obvious green. Sitka spruce is a more muted kind of bluish green.
You know, something that you would describe as like iridescent?
Yeah, I think so.
Kind of like, depending on the angle you look at it, it kind of changes colors.
Yeah.
I get that sense from these trees, where they're like, if you get up close-ish, if you get like a medium distance away, you kind of like do this.
You move your head around, and you'll see different colors and lights.
Blue and green.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great.
I can totally imagine that. So let's see. The cone of this is also another fun one.
Great.
A lot of the cones we talked about, or at least spruce cones, I should know, they go in like two different fashions. Where you have the woodier cones that are rounded, have rounded scales, and then there are the spruce cones that are not as woody, and the scales are kind of more papery and almost fringed at the end.
Yeah.
This is the latter.
The fringed. Okay.
Exactly. So it's fringed. They're kind of like a beigeish, orangish brown color, kind of a very light brown.
Yeah.
And all those little kind of fringed and kind of frilled scales give it a very particular look, and I actually quite like it.
They're handsome cones.
They're handsome cones, and that's, I think, what's most important. So the thing about this tree and where it grows is kind of what brought it up to me. So I was thinking about which tree we were going to talk about today. And I was just looking through, and I often look at all the different trees that people have either suggested or asked for, or something that you and I have brainstormed about. And I think we actually brainstormed this tree initially for something that has to do with music.
Oh, this would have been like 4 years ago.
Yes, I think so. And then we decided to use, I think, Western red cedar to talk about like guitars and how they're made. And
we were talking about cedar top guitars.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And spruce top.
Exactly. And spruce top. Spruce top uses Sitka spruce quite often. Certainly if it's made in the Western United States, but also because these trees are so common in forest areas across the world, in the Northern Hemisphere, that is also probably the species that's used for guitars made in Northern Europe.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Interesting, yeah.
So this tree was on that list. And it's like, okay, well, I got Sitka spruce. What else? I'm thinking through. And it struck me because what we're talking about today is a concept that I learned about back in college, and it's always stuck with me. And it's uniquely relevant because, last night I was laying in bed thinking about this tree and all the topics that we're going to think about, and I could not sleep because for the first time I was kept up by thoughts of Donald goddamn Trump. I'm sorry. It's been 2 weeks, and I have to say something because apparently nobody else is goddamn saying anything.
What?
Well, the Democrats right now. Everyone is kind of saying, hey, guys, are you still there? Like banging on a door.
Yeah, no
and
kidding.
Nobody's answering.
God damn it.
And so I was kind of like, man, I'm kind of upset by this. And I was listening to the daily podcast, one that I listen to quite often, about Elon Musk's Doge and bullshit that he's getting up to. And essentially how everything is getting like dismantled in a way that's extremely inelegant and horrific because of the damage and the likely repercussions it's going to have across the world.
Yeah.
I have my own political ideas about why this is a bad thing, but that's not really the whole point of what I'm bringing up here. Mostly, I was laying awake last night thinking about how much this new system of government that we are experiencing here in the United States is a hearkening back to something that used to be much more common, which is these kind of strong men coming in and saying, we're going to change everything and this is the right way and we're going to go make this happen. And whatever else we have put into play or all these other different little things that we've said, wow, this is actually a better way to do this for these other reasons, is now getting just bulldozed straight through. So today on our docket, and you and I thought about doing this, and we put this together, our schedule, months ago. And we're talking about eco-feminism.
Yes.
So eco-feminism meshed with what's happening in our government. And this tree in particular all came together with this kind of late night sitting and thinking this morning and just kind of generally scheming about what we're going to be talking about.
Did you have a light bulb moment, Casey?
I kind of did, but not really a huge light bulb moment. Okay. The only light bulb moment was I connected the dots for this tree in particular because I have always loved the Sitka Spruce. In fact, whenever anyone asks what's your favorite tree, it's routinely up in the top.
Sure.
And for some reason, this tree always seems to me, if I was to gender trees, which I tend not to do unless we're doing a fun game here on this podcast.
Sure, yeah.
I tend not to. And I don't really have any rhyme or reason to one way or the other. But in this one instance, the Sitka Spruce, I have always thought of as a feminine tree.
Interesting.
I don't know why. And it's not that I'm like, I'm trying to give it this, some kind of extra attributes or anything. It's not that the tree has a particular look to it. It's very similar to all these other spruces that I have no kind of affiliation one way or another in terms of gender.
It just gives you an impression of femininity, a vibe.
It gives me a vibe,
That's
bro.
its vibe.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know that anyone else has this.
Okay.
But that was my light bulb moment, so to speak, where I was like, oh, this is the perfect tree to do. And I also am pissed off about what's happening and the fact that nobody is bringing up anything over the government. This is my little protest today.
Okay, great.
Put this all together. And what we're talking about today is eco-feminism. Have you heard about it? I know we've talked about it. We kind of danced around it and chatted about it a little bit.
I mean, very much in passing, no.
Oh, right. Thank you, Alex.
I'm a clean slate.
You're
Go ahead and indoctrinate me.
I am going to mold you. Well, the reason, I think one of the main places that we have brought this back up goes back to our episode on the Judas tree when we talked about religion and ecology.
Okay.
And this is also where I learned about this in college. I also learned about it in a environmental philosophy class. So this is not me saying, here's what ecofeminism is. This is me kind of drawing these connections to these three basic tenets. This tree, our politics right now, and this thing that I have thought about and that I see and think quite strictly is a reality, maybe?
Okay.
I know that sounded confusing. Let me, just hear me out. So, ecofeminism is also called ecological feminism, if you hear any of these things, what it is.
Okay.
And it's a feminist idea, kind of as a philosophy, came from feminism in the late 70s. And essentially, it emphasizes the way that a patriarchal society exerts dominance over both gender minoritized people and nature because of the associations between them. This is a definition from Harvard that I got.
And nature.
Yes.
Okay.
So when we were talking about religion and ecology, we talked about the idea that humans, based on this one kind of particular idea in the Bible, and then other books like Ishmael and all these other kind of philosophical, cultural books, talk about the idea of dominance of humans over nature.
Sure.
And in Ishmael, this really cool, interesting book, they kind of talk about the differences between a hunter-gatherer culture and a agricultural culture. Okay, nice. I got that right. Agriculture, yeah. And essentially, one is kind of living with nature and they interact with it kind of on par, on the same level. And then with agriculture, you are taking kind of control and you're changing nature in one sense. In the other sense, you are creating two different things. You are creating your man-made space, or human-made space, and the non-human-made space. And then one now gets prioritized over the other. You've now created a binary kind of in a cultural sense.
It's just how we live today here.
Exactly. So fast forward to today, we have binary kind of ideologies all over the place. And one of the important things with ecofeminism is that they see this with women and men as well, specifically male, female, that binary that our culture has usually, and I say our culture explicitly because it really does come down to more kind of Western culture in terms of where this idea kind of came from, but it's expanded out very much from there.
Okay.
So they argue, and I think effectively, that women's rights and environmental rights are entangled, and you cannot address one without addressing the other.
Interesting.
Yes. So here is some other things that they talk about where I think it's interesting, which is why I actually believe it, because we've talked about for many years the fact that language plays an important role in how we view things and talk about things and put them in certain aspects and boxes, right?
Totally.
So when we talk about nature, we usually use feminine words.
Interesting.
So think about this. And just think about some examples in your brain.
Go ahead.
Oh no, Alex, take your time.
I don't know. I need at least one to get the ball rolling. I
Gotcha.
think. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Okay.
Mother Nature.
Oh, sure.
Things like that.
Okay.
Any country is called she.
Yeah, that's not nature, though.
It is.
A country?
Ground, land, physical space.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is kind of this larger, expansive idea about how we use language and refer to the earth, refer to nature.
Okay.
We often use metaphors and allegories about the world, the earth, as a feminine entity that is a nurturer and also produces life. Gaia is a perfect example, Alex. That is a perfect example. So these kind of languages, and then this also comes back to...
I've got one.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Well, maybe. But we use the term like raping the land or like,
yes. No, absolutely.
Okay.
That is not in any way a binary thing. Men get raped too.
Yeah.
But it is very consistently a man perpetrating this on a woman.
Yeah.
So that is also used as a term when someone comes through and destroys land. They've raped the land, you know?
Yeah.
So that is exactly there. It's these words that come together that in one sense are used in a particular way, but you could use them in the same sense. And in fact, we do when we talk about nature. So environmental rights and women's rights are entangled.
Interesting.
So
now, you got me thinking now, because I'm like,
yeah, please. Yeah.
We always, this is sort of related, but like using feminine terminology to like describe anything that we like control.
Yes.
The ship. Like a ship on the ocean.
Now you're talking, Alex.
She's
all a she.
She's seaworthy, or even an airplane. Speaking of the Spruce Goose,
yeah,
any vehicle that's so fucked up, Casey.
Yeah, now you're getting it. Now
Okay.
you're seeing it. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And when you talk about or read these, when you talk to or read these philosophers and read these writers, they can really take this to a larger extent. And they're like, yes, it goes way beyond language. Language is how we frame everything. It's our reference. So as soon as we start naming things in this certain way, it puts it into this binary box, and it gives men, the patriarchy, this kind of, I guess permission is almost the word.
Sure.
Where they're like, yeah, well, this is just how it is.
Like a validation.
Exactly. That's, I think, a better
violence.
term. Yeah, exactly. And so a lot of times what they end up also connecting is, like I said just now, patriarchy, where the patriarchy is in control, and they also talk about hierarchies, where you have a hierarchy between a binary, which means one has to be above the other. So men are above women. They take dominance over women, and they take dominance over the rest of the culture, including the earth and the environment and nature and all these other things. Again, we can find all these binaries. So they talk about capitalism as the tool that comes along with patriarchy.
Okay.
And how those two things are causing the same kind of oppression in a larger sense of women and of nature.
Okay.
And then, as I'm writing all this up and thinking about it and reading these articles, I literally did a space, lo and behold, it's men in capitalism, space. Does any of this sound familiar? And so that, of course, made me start thinking about what's going on right now in our government, where it's this almost reversion back to this kind of this need for control by these powerful elites and these people who have kept, they're getting rid of DEI and thinking that's to blame for anything in this world other than a raising of quality for everyone, you know? And so then I ended up reading a lot about this woman, Vandana Shiva, which is a eco-feminist philosopher and probably one of the most interesting people I've ever kind of read about.
Interesting.
So she started as like going to school in Punjab and then went to work for like the atomic agency or unatomic agency in India. Okay. And then was like, I'm going to go do something else. And then went to become a philosopher and got a bunch of PhDs over in Canada.
Whoa.
And now is like this philosopher who talks a lot about the relationship between the natural world and women and culture more broadly. Okay. And again, I am not qualified to tell anyone like anything more. You got to go read what this woman has written and all the things that she's done. But she has also taken this a step further, and this is where things really started going off the rails for me, is that she has talked about and criticized globalism and said that it's in fact just neo-colonialism, which, again, I'm not a philosopher, so I know a bunch of people out there probably screaming, being like, yes, of course, or something else.
Sure.
But her idea is that there used to be colonialism in kind of this old-fashioned way, which, again, is it old-fashioned? Where you just come through with your war machines and you take over land.
It's happening literally right now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then she said, now this also happens inside of a country where you are having a nationalist ideology that says we are now going to use this, we're going to impose what we think is right and develop this land the way we think it should be.
Okay.
And she connects this with the destruction of indigenous practices and of small local villages and their management in a traditional way of their area.
Sure.
So then, if you look at the United States and any development at all, it's exactly the same thing. Oh, no. We know better that this dam should be built here.
Right.
We can move this over here. Well, we don't really manage our trees that way anymore. Things have changed, and this is the better way to do it. And they connect this kind of elitism with this nationalist ideology. Nationalist ideology, again, ... Sound familiar? So it ended up just like finding in my own personal moment this kind of this feedback system where everything I'm reading, and like I said, we didn't get into this because we happen to think, we know that Donald Trump's going to come into power. We should talk about eco-feminism. Unrelated entirely.
Yeah.
And now this moment just seems to me to be like peaking.
Damn.
But this all kind of comes back to me reflecting on the fact that I think this tree is a feminine tree. And I don't know why. Yet it's also this tree that has been mowed down and used for all these intense things. It has also 1,000 different uses with indigenous people and indigenous culture. It also has uses that are just not even uses. They're just, this tree has an inherent good reason to exist.
Okay.
But for some reason, Alex, I had to wrestle with, why is this one particular tree a tree that I see as feminine, while all the other trees I don't really have a thought one way or the other about?
Well, let's explore it.
I don't know. I legitimately have no idea.
If this tree, just a thought experiment, to see if you associate femininity with the name Sitka Spruce.
Yeah, okay.
If it were called the Johnson Spruce,
yeah, maybe.
do you think that it would change your outlook on it?
Yeah,
like
probably.
if you remove the name from it.
Yeah, I would guess so.
Okay, what does Sitka mean?
It's a place in Alaska.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's I think based on the Sitka Sound way up there.
A piece of land.
A piece of technically, I guess it's an area between land. It's water.
I rolled my eyes.
He did. Yeah, everyone could feel it. Everyone did. They rolled their eyes too.
Land is still water. You know what I mean.
Yes, I do. So yeah, I mean, it's possible.
I mean, water is still land, is what I meant to say.
I knew. I heard what you said.
Yeah, we do that a lot.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think I did give that a thought as well, where whenever we've named trees, it's often the last name of the person who's inevitably man who did it. And I was like, how many trees are there named after a woman botanist or a woman explorer out there doing something like that?
Interesting.
Like very little. Brewer spruce, its most close relative, that's named after a guy. Engelmann spruce, another close relative, named after a guy, so on and so forth. And, I didn't sit there because I wanted to read more of this philosophy to try to think of all the names of all the men trees in this entire world. But I did come up with that as a thought, Alex, where if we name them after these last names, which again is a patriarchal foundational thing, right? It's a man's last name. I was having this discussion the other day about why women take men's last names and not the other way around and how that tradition is. So it's very much, I think, a part of it, honestly. But that goes, I think, not to cut you off, but it's like how language is so absolutely intertwined with our cultural understanding of our relationship to everything.
Yes, and the way we think about everything.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, go watch Arrival by Denis Villeneuve.
Oh, okay.
It's about this.
Oh, great, yeah. I'll put it on our list.
Interesting case. I mean, gosh, there's so much there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of a tree that I see as innately feminine.
Yeah. Or honestly, do you see a tree as innately masculine?
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, like, I think actually the Western hemlock is kind of feminine.
Really?
For
Okay.
some reason.
Yeah.
But then I start thinking, immediately my critical voice comes in and goes, is that sexist?
Yes.
Like, is it sexist that you I'm not calling you sexist,
Sure.
but I'm just proposing. Is it sexist that you think that the Sitka spruce is innately feminine?
Yeah.
And is it sexist that I think the Western hemlock is innately feminine? Because I don't know what it is about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what this gets down to is not necessarily is it innately sexist, but it does kind of get at the idea that you and I have an understanding or some kind of idea of what femininity is.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind feminism is the equality of the sexes. And that is like one of their base tenets. So we can't really say, well, this is, more feminine, because what is that? That's a completely idiotic
Totally.
thing when you get down to it. Like, what is the definition? Like, what is feminine? Like, once you actually, it's like looking at what is a tree. When you dive into it and you get further and further, the definition completely fades away to arbitrary kind of ideas.
Totally. And I actually think I mean, in a human world, I actually think that using words like that's very feminine or that's very masculine is kind of damaging.
Yeah, I think it is.
Like, I am an artist. I'm a musician. I am a tender-hearted man. I have a lot of traits that growing up, I was called a pussy by some not great boys from my middle school.
Yeah, which is, again, that's using a female anatomy
Yes.
as a derogatory term.
Here's another one. Suck my dick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And so I think just like, I try to stray away from being like, that's very masculine. That's very feminine.
Yeah.
Because that is creating another binary. And I'm like, whoa, no. Break it down.
Yeah.
It's just a spectrum of color.
And that, I think you hit on something right there.
Yeah.
Because there is like one of the big things that I think is also in a cultural moment right now is trying to come up with these, like a term that is very much centrist or like captures everything and gets rid of
Totally.
the nuances.
Yeah.
And the thing that I have a problem with it, I can't really always put my finger on it, but I think a lot of people have really, revolted from that. And I've heard this from other people I've talked to at conferences, basically saying, politically correct terms are how we're losing people.
Yeah.
And I also rolled my eyes and I've gone back and forth on it because I'm like, well, I am convinced by this argument. But then their argument also seems reasonable as well if it's pushing people away, because reality is more nuanced. And I bring this up in this case because when you talk about the idea of feminine and masculine, we can look at our culture, we can look at people in there, and we have different things that everyone would put in those different boxes.
Totally, yeah.
So they're nebulous, but they're also quite understood when you go to the ends of the spectrum.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's like David Bowie right in the fucking middle. And then everything
Tilda
else on
Swinton.
either side. Yes, yeah, Taylor Swinton. Yeah. So I think that is like, it is not so easy to just say, let's get rid of the binary.
Yeah.
Because it's also very much obviously there.
And it's so, it's there. It's weird because it's like there, but something that you like don't want to look at and don't want to acknowledge.
Sure.
But then it's like so baked into our brains.
Yeah.
But it's like, I mean, it's biological too.
It is. And it does come down to that also. Yeah.
I don't know.
Now, the thing that
a mess.
it is a complete fucking mess.
Here's what I think.
Okay.
I think everything is trans.
Ah, okay.
Every like subject,
Uh-huh.
every physical object is just trans.
Okay.
Every human
It can
trans.
go. It can be anything,
Like
or it can go.
anything, anyone can be anything or anyone.
All right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I think so. Yeah.
That's the direction I want to lead myself in thinking.
Okay.
I don't really care what, other people think unless it's like damaging.
Sure.
But I think for myself, I want to be like, you know what? Like in my autistic brain, I'm like, everything needs to be fluid. Or else the fucking divisions and the labels and the borders between these things, and then this border is kind of a gray border.
Yeah,
it can pass back and forth between these two things, but not between these two things.
Yeah,
like get rid of it all. Everything's trans.
Yeah. Okay. I like that idea. I think that is an effective way to, like, I don't know, help break down those binaries.
Parent Earth.
Parent Earth. Oh man, that is good. Oh, this is Parent Earth.
My big push.
That sounds like an alien came down like, yes, this is Parent Earth, of course.
Welcome to Parent Earth.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a really hard question, and I've wrestled with it quite a few times. And it is, I think what I enjoy most about it is seeing the language and the way we manage things and how those interact. And then I think about how this would actually play out in the real world. Then I have to look at a movement that you and I talked about and we've learned about that I'm sure Vandana Shiva has something to do with, and that's the Chipko movement.
Okay.
But Alex, we don't have time to talk about all that today, so we're going to do it next week.
A part 2, you say?
It's a part 2.
All right.
So we're going to talk about this Chipko movement and what it means when you take this idea of ecofeminism and you actually put it on the ground and you say, no, here's an example very explicitly of how this actually has repercussions in the whole world.
Less philosophical, more like practical.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
well, I'm excited for that case.
Yeah, we'll have to put a pin in that until next time.
Even this mini-series is a binary. Part 1 and 2.
Dang it.
Can't escape it.
We can't do anything. Well, shit.
All right. We got to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to give the Sitka Spruce a rating. We will be right back with Completely Arbortrary. Welcome back to Completely Arbortrary. That was our discussion of the Sitka Spruce. Casey.
Yes, Alex.
It's time to give this tree a rating. Here's how it works. We're going to give some final thoughts on the Sitka Spruce and give it a rating of 0 to 10 golden cones of honor. Wow. As our resident expert, we'll begin with you. As our resident eco-feminist, we'll begin with you.
Sounds good. Well, as a hetero male, this tree's fucking hot. Okay.
Classic hetero male
Classic
stuff.
hetero
Typical
male.
hetero male.
Always looking at Sitka spruces and objectifying them.
When I think Casey Clapp, I think hetero male. This is my hetero male friend, Casey Clapp.
Hello. I'm quite attracted to your bark. Like I said, hetero male, really into some weird shit.
That's us at the mixer.
It is, yeah. That's how Alex and I used to go to bars together. So I think that the Sitka Spruce, as I said before, it's one of my favorite trees.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite trees because it kind of grows under the radar unless you like kind of know the specifics of it. Which means if you go and walk to the coast and go down next to one of these trees that is growing within like, I don't know, 40 feet of the fucking Pacific Ocean's sandy shores, it is 200 feet tall. It is 12 feet in diameter, and it is just covered in moss. It looks like it's been completely shaved on one side because salt sprays killed off all the leaves, so it only has leaves on one side.
Okay.
They are the toughest trees that can grow from Alaska to south of Santa Cruz.
Damn.
And can grow as tall as redwoods, can get thicker and put on more wood at a faster growth rate than everything except the redwoods and sequoias.
This is you cosplaying as like a door-to-door Sitka Spruce salesman.
Yeah. Anyway, no, hear me out. Hear me out.
I'm not here to sell anything.
I just think you should learn about this tree. It's one of those trees that when you find one that is just like really stunning, you're kind of like, what is that tree?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry that it's invasive elsewhere. I really am.
Not our fault.
But the ones that are over here, man, I could hang out in a Sitka spruce forest for hours and hours and hours.
Wow.
And I have for many, many different times. So I think I'm going to give the Sitka spruce a 9.9.
Wow.
Golden cones of honor.
Now I'm curious, what would provide that extra 0.1 cone?
If it was a little bit more decay resistant, and if it grew just a little bit taller.
Oh my God.
You know,
the tallest species in the pine family isn't good enough for you?
Yeah, because it grows next to the redwoods, and the redwoods are like, okay, whatever, man.
What's your average redwood height?
That's
compared to a Sitka spruce.
Well, usually, the tallest I believe is almost 40 or 50 feet taller.
Okay.
So it's like 375-ish is like...
But that's the tallest.
Yeah, it's up there. It's competing.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'd say, I don't know, 100 meters, like 300 feet, 250 to 300 feet. You can generally find redwoods, Douglas fir, Sitka spruce, all growing all together.
Okay.
Also, I like the cone, but I want something more. You gotta really wow me if you want that final 0.1 stars.
That's fair enough, Casey.
I guess I should say cones, but I was making a Michelin star reference there.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm watching The Bear because it's this new hit show on television.
That's the new hit show. All right, 9.9. 9.9. Stunning score
for a stunning tree.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Oh, thanks, Al.
The Sitka spruce, I really enjoy. I love a hometown hero, and to me, this feels like a hometown hero here in Oregon. Mm-hmm. I know that it grows elsewhere, but I don't care. I'm taking ownership over it because the land is there for me to dominate.
It is there for you to dominate. That is its entire reason for existence.
That's right. Through the glory of God.
Alex, you're glowing.
And every deer's for me to shoot. Sitka spruce, gorgeous, big, beautiful. I mean, like it's a just, you have that friend you can just fucking hug, and they're like big and thick. Mm-hmm. Don't look at me. And they're just like you can just hug them to your fullest strength.
Yes.
And they're just like, I barely felt that.
My friend Seth is like that.
There you go.
Best
Seth.
hugger I've ever met in my entire life.
How about that? That's how I feel about the Sitka spruce. Like you could just, like you just want to kill it with kindness, you know?
And it's just like, oh.
Yes. And it's just like, thanks.
All right.
That was nice. I don't mind the cone. They're not great, but they're fine.
They are fine.
I honestly, spruce cones for me are kind of lackluster in general.
Okay. Huh.
Tallest species in the pine family. How about that?
That's pretty cool.
The only thing that would give this a 10 would be like a deep personal connection to it. I just don't have that.
What? You've never flown in a spruce goose?
I'm going to give this tree a 9.5 out of 10.
9.5? I feel like Alex like, whatever, let's do it.
Let's fucking do it. Let's fucking go.
That's what I'm talking about, Alex. Now we're talking 0.4 difference.
That's right.
It's beautiful.
Let me find a musical instrument.
Okay.
Casey, the prodigal son returns.
Alex, the melodica.
The melodica.
We thought that went out of style in season 2.
We're bringing it back, baby. It's all cyclical. If you're wondering what the fuck is going on, because the Sitka spruce got a 9.0 or higher from each Casey and I, it is officially inducted into the Golden Arboretum of Fame and deserves the theme song. To the Sitka spruce, we honor you. Good.
Man, I love that you play music, Alex.
Play music.
I use 0 air quotes on that, and I will not allow yours either.
Casey, it's time for our completely arbitrary AMA.
All right.
And if you want to ask a question on the podcast or get a chance at asking something on the podcast, become a Premium member, arbitrarypod.supercast.com. Lots of different rewards, a couple different tiers, but they both include access to the AMA Ask Us Anything. And this week, we have one from Rory.
Hi, Rory.
Rory says, would you guys ever consider doing a series that summarizes the biggest categories of conifers?
Yeah, say no more.
Casey's immediate reaction.
Thank you guys very much. This has been completely arbitrary.
For conifer aficionados out there like me. I love hearing the descriptions of how needles, cones, and bark are different across species of conifers, and it would be really cool to deep dive into those major categories in a more structured way.
I would love to.
It is my dream to someday be able to look at a conifer or cone and guess its family, even if I'm not 100% sure what species it is. Thanks, Rory.
Absolutely, Rory.
Casey, I love this idea.
I do too.
I think it would be very precious of us to do a conifer theme month of some kind.
I think everyone would be like, well, of course, they've done 10,000 of those already.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
What's 4 times 12?
What I think would actually be fun would be doing a whole extra episode where usually, as you may be familiar, each week we come up with a new tree and we talk about it.
Yeah.
And we can talk about all the differences between other trees, but that feels a little derogatory towards that one tree.
Okay.
I think. But that's why we have extra episodes, Alex.
Yes.
And that is also why I wrote a book called The Trees Around You, How to Identify Local and Common Neighborhood Trees.
That's right.
Because that... In particular, I go through all the differences between all the different conifer species and genre that are native and non-native, just planted in Oregon. And the whole Pacific Northwest, I should say, but, we're included. So if we were to do something like this as an extra episode, then I would say, hey, here's a spruce, and here's what makes it a spruce. It's different from a pine, and here's what makes pines different from hemlocks. So on and so forth.
I say take it a step further.
Oh.
And do a whole series of each episode is a different genre. Genus.
Okay. Yeah. So we don't...
The spruce episode.
Wow. Okay.
Pine episode. I don't think you can cover all that shit in one episode.
That's hard. Yeah, because they're varied. There's 10,000 different things about each one of these individual species.
Get to work.
Shit. Well, I will try my best. Yeah, maybe we should. That would be an interesting... Interesting that, you know what, Alex? Okay, this might be a funny idea. No, okay, it wouldn't work. I was going to say, there's some that are just monotypic genre. Certainly in the cypress family, another coniferous family. But we couldn't do all the conifers because that would just send us off into oblivion. There are so many different genre of conifers.
Okay. We could figure it out.
We could do like maybe...
we could figure it out off mic even.
I bet you we could, yeah, but I like scheming about this. Anyway, yes, the answer is yes, we could definitely do that.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I also will say it will be a bonus episode, like you said. And Rory, because you support Completely Arbortrary Treemium, you will have access to that, and anybody who has access to it will be able to access it.
That's right. Well said, Alex.
Casey Clapp.
Oh, Alex Crowson, another good episode. But before we go, I have one thing I want to tell you about.
Oh my God, what?
I want everyone to come to the Kiggins Theater on Wednesday, the 12th of February in Vancouver, Washington.
Why don't you say this in the beginning of the show?
I forgot to at the beginning of the show.
All right.
You can put it in. Why don't you splice it in? I'll give you something in a little later if you know what I mean.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, everyone should come listen. I'm going to be talking about how trees grow on next Wednesday, the 12th.
Where's that again?
Vancouver, Washington.
Vancouver, Washington.
Yes, it'll be the Kiggins Theater. You have to sign up and get tickets. It is Science on Tap.
Say that name of the theater again. Kiggins?
Kiggins.
Cool.
I'm very excited about it. It's going to be good. I've been spending a lot of time on this presentation, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
How about that?
Yes.
I wish I could make it.
What? You can't?
No.
What?
Sorry.
Oh.
Psych!
Wow!
I'm actually not sure.
All right. This is fair. That was fun anyway.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Completely Arbortrary. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Completely Arbortrary is produced by Alex Crowson and Casey Clapp. Our artwork is by Jillian Barthold, and our music is by Aves and the Mini Vandals. If you want to support this podcast and become a Treemium member, head over to arbitrarypod.supercast.com. Thanks for listening.